Thanks for meeting, Gary. I was wondering if you could give us a little background on what you work, where you work, and where you worked before that, and your history.
Well, I'm chairman of Silver Eagle Manufacturing. And Silver Eagle is a company my father founded in 1933 as a trucking company. And Dad was very inventive. So he invented things for his own fleet to improve highway safety. And other companies wanted what he had done. So that put us in the manufacturing business. So we've been a manufacturer since 1936. And we specialize in heavy truck converter dollies, full trailer front suspension, straw bars, that sort of undercarriage. Also aerodynamic devices for heavy-duty truck, and then light tactical trailers for the defense industry. Now, as far as myself, I've been involved in the business since 1970. Started off in engineering and worked in a couple subsets, including a truck dealership, and then worked in virtually every aspect of our manufacturing business and became president of the company in about 1992. And then recently I've taken over, I've been chairman for a long time, but just a chairmanship role so I can do further outreach, and I have president and CEO running the day-to-day operations.
Okay, great. And how did you get interested in efficiency and trucking efficiency?
Well, it's on several levels. First of all, it's just good for the industry. It's just good business. There's the personal level of, I think it's the right thing to do. So it's an opportunity business-wise. It's also an opportunity to do the right thing as a citizen.
Great. And this is a specific question. We were discussing in our group the barriers to adopting new technologies, and I think our thesis specifically was that what prevents transformational efficiency is that using new technology is going to make jobs more difficult because there are reliability and liability issues. Specifically, most trucks are custom made, the service maintenance infrastructure is immature, and you need certainty before you can make a decision. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe talk about some challenges in your personal career related to that.
Well, I think through experience in the industry, often people in their enthusiasm to launch a product overstate the claims. So there's first the discounting that goes on any claim as lack of credibility. And new products usually have problems. They're just going to be glitchy. Most of us have that experience on anything that's never been done before, or it's the first version. We see it in software, we see it in cell phones, we see it in automobiles. And so there's a general skepticism of it's going to have other problems that are going to affect my business and my life. So usually adoption of technology, if you aren't just a person who's excited about being a trend leader, an early adopter, there's a certain reluctance that's well-founded that it's going to make my life more difficult. It's going to give me problems. And so that has to be overcome with enough perceived benefit for them to take the risk, and the risk can even be personal, career-wise, to adopt something. And so I think that's a big thing, because there is a bit of snake oil, or a fear of snake oil. All of us have had it in our lives, and trucking industry in particular, because it's really about predictability. Trucking has to go out there and do its job every day, no matter what the conditions are. And so being reliable is very important.
And then we also tossed out a lot of solutions to that. Were there any that particularly excited you, or that you might think about in the future?
Well, I think what we were really after was, how do you find a way that people don't have to take a lot of their personal time and resources to trust some third party? And I was excited about the idea of, can we create something in the trucking industry that's similar to what Consumer Reports is, that you could rely on, that gave you a sense of it was credible and not biased, and nobody had a horse in the race. I like that idea. If we could find some group that represents that, or some way to implement that.
Yeah, great. And we also talked about some free market techniques, and then there were also a lot of people who were discussing policy and regulation. And do you have a sense of a preference for either one, more like market-driven techniques versus policy?
As a general rule, I always have the market preference, because people then are doing what they're choosing to do. Most people don't like being told what to do. they like telling other people what to do, which is usually where policy comes from. The other person ought to behave differently. So I would always bias towards making something so attractive that you want to do it.
Yeah. I think we were talking about California too, and how like their policies have kind of created a lot of barriers. And what were we referring to again? What was the?
Well, the current understanding of the way the rules are going to be written for the greenhouse gas emission reduction on aerodynamic devices are that California is going to make shippers responsible, as well as the owners of the equipment, to see that the rules are being met. One of the rules was that if aerodynamic devices had any damage, then the equipment needed to be repaired immediately, and that's not a practical solution. In our own business, we've tested damaged aerodynamic devices, and the degradation isn't as great as one might guess. And so it's a very impractical solution. It's a solution looking for a non-problem.
Interesting. Oh, and then there was this counterintuitive thing that we were talking about, which is that when you have more load, it's actually safer, and that a lot of it kind of depends on the driver and how they react to having, say, 3 trailers. And yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Well, where that stems is people change their behavior based on their perceived risk. People tend to have a tolerance for risk in whatever form it is. And as we know, there's some people who love taking risks. That's how they get their adrenaline rush. And there's those that try to avoid it at all costs. But within each individual, they choose where that is. And if a person feels safer, they usually use up that risk boundary to where they're comfortable again. So the dilemma is when you add perceived safety and stability to a vehicle, it usually gets used up. And there's actually evidence of that in testing that we participated in with NHTSA and UMTRI years ago. NHTSA's National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, and UMTRI's University of Michigan Transportation Institute. And that's just what the drivers did. They perceived that the sets were more stable, and the G-forces, lateral G-forces, went up.
Great. And then, what are you looking to get out of this Charrette? Is there anything you're hopeful for or looking toward?
Well, there's actually several layers I'm looking for here. The first is, as I talked earlier, is just trying to do the right thing, help move the industry forward and do the right thing for our society and the world. But I'm also looking to make some new relationships, which has already started. Help make sure that things that I understand, I believe I can bring to the table, get presented, and that they get considered. And then also find business strategies that can help our business out of this.
Great, thanks a lot.